that. Wow, we think we'll get par value for the houses we have and these securities that weren't bought by the Federal Reserve, and any money we bring in, let's pay ourselves a bonus. And that's what's going on. So this problem was so big they couldn't just pump out $16 trillion. No, they got to allow them, and also corporate America. You know, it's the banks that mostly get this financial accounting standards board treatment where they can value these assets, these toxic assets, whatever they think they get for them in the future, as long as they're not bought by the Fed and the taxpayers. However, so if they're allowed to do that, it must be an awful big problem. And also corporate America, they say, oh, corporate America is flush with cash. Well, not according to the former budget director, who says that corporate America, under the Reagan administration, corporate America has about $11 trillion in debt. So corporate America isn't doing so hot. But the banks definitely are not doing, David Stockman, the banks definitely are not doing hot at all. And, General Electric was bailed out. They should have taken that company down to $1.
Well, Greg Hunter, long segment coming up. I want to pop in with the lady who gave us the documents, pointed them out to us, and I'm going to try to get her on the show tonight. Well, stay there, yeah. What were you going to say? Go ahead.
You can talk to me in the break. Give me the web address. I want to get on the same page with you.
Absolutely. Here we go. We'll be right back. Stay with us. We're going back to Angie, who's been on hold, who tried to call us 4 or 5 days ago and said, hey, go to the Department of Defense bid process site, and you can see where not only is KBR getting contracts to man the camps, we got those documents from state employees, but they are stating that the military is involved. And that it's Blue Force, versus the Red Force, the command and control. And I'd been to urban warfare drills. I'm like, well, how do you know that? And then Angie off-air told me some things, but I'm just going to leave it at that and see what she wants to say. Obviously, we'll, give her anonymity so she don't have to worry too much. But now you've got, here's the headlines. Martial law attempt in Louisiana echoes Ron Paul's warning. Louisiana state officials call for troops on the streets in war against guns and drugs. I've got, in Illinois, I've got what NBC and AP are saying, yeah, we want troops on the streets. So that's a new talking point, but it's always going to be in the bad neighborhoods first ahead of this. And we're going back to investigative journalist Greg Hunter. We're not going to spend a lot of time with the caller. In fact, my phone system just crashed, John. But we're going to spend a few minutes with Angie, and then I'm going to work on getting her on the TV show tonight, and maybe even her husband, because, again, this stuff's all public, but you'd have to know where to go look where they're doing all this. It was Wall Street Journal in 2006 about the $386 million to establish through Halliburton 3 1 million person camps. But now they admit, hey, we're going to use the Department of Defense against citizens. Hey, we've got the Emergency Centers Establishment Act for economic collapse. So now it's pretty much admitted. It's just what are the details of it? Super creepy, Greg, and you keep going back to economic collapse. Obviously, if they know it's all going to collapse, I guess they think they're just going to put the homeless people and the dissenters in these facilities. Or, I mean, what do you see as an investigative journalist?
Well, by the numbers, if we lose our currency, so we have this $12 trillion in liquid dollar assets, that's Treasury bonds. That's dollars, but Treasury bonds are really nothing more than you pay somebody $1 today, and in 5 years or 3 years or 10 years or 30 years, you get some more dollars back, and hopefully the interest rate will make up for the dollars you gave, and you'll actually have a profit. I don't see how paying somebody 2 or 3% or 4% over 5 or 10 years, you're ever going to be able to get your money back in terms of real buying power, the buying power of your money back. So a lot of countries on the planet, know this, and if we do have a dollar route, in other words, if we do have a sell of, let's say it's not, everybody doesn't sell all 12 trillion. Let's say they sell 2 or 3 trillion. That could cause interest rates to spike. Anybody with an adjustable rate mortgage, that could cause, inflation. We might be paying $10 a gallon for a gallon of gas. That's the kind of things that can happen if we have a change of currency. And I believe ultimately this will all come down to a currency crisis, and that they'll have a bank holiday. When they do have a bank holiday, as they have in the past, they devalue your currency, and you'll just have a lot less money to spend.
By the way, let me stop you. I have another headline here. U.S. asks banks to keep more cash on hand.
Yes.
That's in AP and AFP. So there it is. And they say more people are coming in wanting their money.
Well, yeah, Yes, and, let me tell you, Martin Armstrong, the famous economist that was held for, years for contempt of court, which is outrageous, but still, he is a renowned, brilliant economist that came up with this economic confidence model, which is really the theory of cycles, and it's the theory of economic cycles give way to political cycles. We had a depression in the 30s, we had the hyperinflation in the 20s for Germany, we had a depression in the 30s, and Hitler came to power in the 30s. So an economic cycle, for example, gave way to a political cycle. And he's out of jail now for his contempt. I think he was held for 5 or 7 years for contempt. I'm not an expert on his case, but
talk about a police state.
He was told he was wrongly convicted or wrongly accused of a crime. He did plead guilty to one crime, but thought he was going to get out. Anyway, long and short of it, Martin Armstrong, the brilliant economist who I believe, he just gave a seminar in Philadelphia. And, people fly in from all over the world. People with real money, it was like, $2,500 or $5,000 to attend or whatever, which is nothing to people with money. And he says, when I have people fly in, it's kind of like the United Nations. I have people come over from really around the globe, and he's going to have some more of these conferences where you talk about, macro, global, economic things. And even Martin Armstrong says, hey, listen, without real reform, the system is going to blow up. The world is going to blow up. The world economy. And he says, what the number one question was at this conference of all these people? The number one question, according to him in a recent interview, was, is my money safe in America? And he says, listen, I got to tell you, with this MF Global thing, I got to say no. I don't have good confidence that anybody's money is safe in America because basically they just went. This is according to Martin Armstrong. Now, this is a source, a real source, not my. I don't think money is safe in America. This is a guy that counsels governments and Congress. He's been called to Congress on more than one occasion. You may not see him, testifying in front of the House Financial Committee, but they've had him up there. And he says that, with what's going on, your money's not safe in America with the whole MF Global debacle. So that's a problem. Also, Ann Barnhart, you remember her?
Yes.
She shut her brokerage down. Because she said, hey, in good faith, because these trades can't settle, I can't tell my clients that their money is safe.
Hey, they've had a bunch of other heads. Soros gave the money up a few months ago and said, I'm not taking your money. And they've had a bunch of others do it in the last 6 months.
Yes, and why is that? Because systemic failure could lock everybody's money up. They're talking about a credit freeze, over in Europe, which is totally a misnomer. They're not fighting a credit freeze. They're not fighting a credit crisis. The banks are insolvent. I was guest hosting on a radio show, and they had this Wall Street Journal reporter a couple of months ago, and he was over there talking about the European banks. And I said, hey, listen, I got this quote from CNN buried in a story on CNN, and it's on my site. Meredith Whitney, star banking analyst Meredith Whitney, was sitting there talking with Poppy Harlow, I believe her name is, and she says, Meredith Whitney says, they can't bail out all the banks. There's going to be bank failures because, the governments can't bail them all out. Well, they're going to have to print tons of money, A, to bail out the winners, the ones they want to pick. B, why is that story not being reported? And I asked this Wall Street Journal reporter over there, and reporting on this as a guest. I said, why isn't the fact that we are going to see banking failures? Why are you not reporting that? This is the reporter. I want to name him. Even at the Wall Street Journal, they're told to tone it down, not to cause a panic. Hey, don't say that. Here, this slipped out from Meredith Whitney. You didn't see 60 Minutes having her back on about, hey, there's going to be banking failures in Europe, and there are going to be banking failures.
Well, look at Ron Paul. He's been warning about this, and they call him a fearmonger and a crazy person.
Oh, no. By the numbers, listen, the banks are insolvent. It's such a big problem that not only in America did the Financial Accounting Standards Board, FASB, change the rules for what your assets are. That's how insolvent the system is. And people don't realize it. They changed the accounting rules because they couldn't print.
But what does the system think? Because and we're going to this caller because I want Angie to tell us more about this huge military news. Corzine runs off with $1.2 billion conservatively.
What? He didn't actually himself, but
it's disappeared. It's disappeared. It's disappeared. But then, as you know, it got no attention except the Financial Times of London did do a blurb. The head of the CME group, for those that don't know, the big commodities group above
Chicago Mercantile Exchange,
CME. He came out and said, sorry, we were in meetings with them. They took the money out. He gave the order. So there's Corzine at the
$175 million, yes.
Yeah, totally caught right there, and no one gets in trouble. I mean, obviously Corzine's up there lying. He's the CEO. He doesn't know where it got wired to.
Well, I wrote a piece, and I tell you what, if I have to look that stupid to save my bacon, I mean, here you have a guy who is a former governor of the state of New Jersey, a former U.S. senator, and a co-chair, a co-CEO of Goldman Sachs. And he doesn't know anything going on, and the two guys with him, the COO and CFO, also say they don't know what's going on. I said the Three Stooges testified in front of Congress. I mean, the only thing they were missing was Mo slapping Larry and Curly for the dumb answers they were giving.
So why do you think they're getting so bold and reckless? I mean,
I think we're back to the insolvency problem over in Europe, and of course they're adding more debt to tackle this problem.
So it's like pass the hand grenade. It's like
crisis.
It's like pass the hand grenade. They pull the pen out and they just pass the bad debt around.
Well, yes, and we're just talking about Ann Barnhart, the woman that shut her business down, says, "Hey, listen, you need $100 trillion to bail out Europe at least." And you know what? They came out in the Davos, Switzerland thing in January.
They said we want $100 trillion. That was
how much did they need? $100 trillion. You tell me how they're going to pay. They're going to handle this insolvency crisis with the banks. With $500, $600, $1 trillion, $2 trillion over in Europe. It's a solvency crisis. They are insolvent. And let me tell you, what I did get out of this reporter from the Wall Street Journal is, well, they've changed the rules about sovereign debt. And yes, you too can hold that. You can hold Greek bonds that are, 30 cents on the dollar, 50 cents on the dollar. They want them to take a 50% haircut. You can hold Greek bonds at par. Makes your bottom line look really good. That's like you saying, hey, I've got 10 ounces of gold, but I'm going to hold it on my books, not at $1,640 or whatever it is right now, $30 an ounce. I'm going to hold it on my books at what I think I'll get for it in the year 2024. I think it's worth $10,000 an ounce. Woo-hoo! I've got $100,000. Let's leverage that up. Let's pay some bonuses. Let's go out and buy a car. That's what's going on with the accounting. They are allowed to hold these toxic assets that they're toxic because the Fed bought at least a couple of $1 trillion because they weren't any good. And you think about it, and Alex, I want you to back up and do a wide shot. And I'm going to tell you something really simple, and it's going to be like, you had the robo-signing. Remember that robo-signing? Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so now we know it's widely reported that millions of documents were forged with people like Linda Green, and we're talking about promissory notes. And you think you pay for your house after 30 years. No, you don't. You pay it when you sign a promissory note. That's a financial instrument, much like a Federal Reserve note. You can't go counterfeit a Federal Reserve note, go down to 7-Eleven and buy a Slurpee, can you?
No.
You can't counterfeit a promissory note either. So now if we know that this is good, you'll like this. So if we know millions of documents were forged, widely reported story, then riddle me this. How did they create mortgage-backed securities when they didn't have the documents? Obviously, they have to forge them. How did they bundle the securities?
Well,
Number two, how did they rate the securities? If you have to forge the documents, how did you rate the securities? Number three, how did you get a tax advantage if they weren't really securities? How did you get a tax advantage so the income goes straight through to the bondholder, to the pension fund, to whoever? It's called a RIMIC. How did that happen? And finally, if you know there is major fraudulent activities, as Alan Grayson said, and many other people have said it was fraudulent, why isn't the Justice Department filing charges?
They're busy